Hi guys, welcome back to the home and homestead. Today we'll be doing what to do with all that zucchini. This is part one of a multi-part series, and we will be using zucchini from the garden in various ways in a number of recipes, some sweet, some savory. So follow along and see how we will be using zucchini today. So for today's recipe, we will be taking zucchini and flavoring them as you would an apple pie. So we will be making zucchini apple pie, and it'll have a Dutch topping or a crumble or streusel type topping on the pie. First off, what we will need to do is make the pie crust. So I have some pie crust that I made previously, and when I do a batch of pie crusts, I get them all ready, put them in a Ziploc bag, and I freeze them. So this one I took out last night, put in the refrigerator to thaw. So this one's all ready to go. But what I'll do today is show you how I make my homemade pie crust. These pie crusts are great for sweet or savory recipes. I use them for quiches and pies and things like that. So I will provide a link to my website where you can have a free printable of the pie crust recipe if you're interested in this as well. So for the pie crust, we'll start off with 1.5 cups of flour in a food processor. Now you can certainly cut the flour and butter together by hand using a pastry cutter, however it's much faster and easier with a food processor. So 1.5 cups of flour I have pre-measured here, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, two tablespoons of sugar, and 1/2 cup of cold butter diced. So what I like to do is I actually freeze. I buy extra butter when it's on sale. I keep some in the refrigerator, and then the extra ones I put into the freezer for longer term storage. So I will take my butter out of the freezer to do this recipe. So 1/2 cup of butter is actually a stick of butter. So what I'll do is I'll cut this and dice it up. And I'll add it to the food processor. And you don't have to be real precise with the coarsely chopping or dicing of the butter, especially if you're using a food processor, because that'll do most of the work. And when I do my pie crust, I like to keep nice big pieces of butter in the crust so that the crust will be extra flaky. So we have those 4 ingredients in the food processor. Now we're just going to pulse it until we get pea-sized pieces of butter. That should do it. So we're getting these little pea-sized pieces of butter still. You can see them in the flour mixture. So we'll put the cover back on. We'll add the final ingredient, which is 1/2 cup of ice cold water. So we'll pour the water in. We'll just pulse this until it comes together. There we go. So now all of the dry flour has come together in here. What I'll do is I'll lay it out on this silicone baking sheet, and I can kind of knead it a little bit and roll it out to the pie crust shape and size that I want. See, so all of the flour came together into this dough. We'll just kind of work it together. It's a nice shape. More or less get it into a ball. It's not really kneading, it's just kind of getting it into a ball. And I just kind of roll it around in little specks to get it all back into this. Now if I were to be pre-making this, making a number of batches, which I will today, I'll do this one for the recipe, but then I'll make a few more so that I can freeze, 3 or 4 in the freezer. I would just kind of flatten it down to this shape, to a nice disc, put it in a Ziploc freezer bag, and then put this in the freezer. But for today, I'll roll this out later to the size that we want for the pie crust. So what I like to do now is just put it on a plate or something and put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use it for the recipe. So that's what I'll do. So now we'll move on to step 2, which is making the topping of the pie. And we'll be doing a Dutch topping, so it's like a crumble sweet topping. So in this bowl, normally I would put things in the bowl, mix it up, and then cut the butter with a hand pastry cutter. However, since we're doing everything from start to finish and I already have the food processor dirty, I'll use that today. So in the bowl we have 1 cup of flour, a half cup of oatmeal, a 1/4 cup of sugar, a half teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. There is actually double the amount in the bowl because I'll be doing 2 pies today. So we'll add the dry ingredients to the food processor. If you're doing this by hand, just mix it a little bit with a spoon in the bowl and move on to the next step. So first we'll pulse it a little bit just to get the flavors and the seasoning mixed together a little bit. Then we'll add a half a cup of cold butter, coarsely cut. And what we'll do is we'll pulse this in the food processor until it's about the size of a pea again, just like the crust. If you're hand cutting, then you would just cut it until it's about the size of a pea as well. So we'll just pulse this a few times. All right, that looks good. So we'll remove this, and I'll place it back in the bowl, and I'll put this in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes, which is usually about the time it takes to make the filling for the pie anyway. We'll be doing this so that that butter that's in here doesn't get too warm. You want it to stay nice and cold so that it doesn't just melt away right away when it's in the oven baking with the pies. All right, on to the next step, making the filling. Okay, so for this part of the recipe, we'll be making the filling. So we'll be taking a couple zucchinis from the garden, and we'll be peeling them and cutting them up into slices like you would see in an apple pie. So what I'll do is I'll cut the ends off, peel, and I'll cut this in half, and then I'll use a spoon and I'll scrape out any seeds and things that are in the middle, and then we'll cut it into a nice slice to put into the pie. Alright, so we have zucchini slices all ready to go, and they do have the appearance of like a Granny Smith apple. This is about 2 quarts here. I have a mixing bowl, and it has a measuring indicator on the side there. So I'll probably use about 1 quart per pie. So now we'll get the pie crusts all rolled out, and then we'll add the zucchini slices and the seasonings on top, get the topping on, and put them in the oven. So right now I'll preheat the oven to 375. Okay, so now the pie crusts are out of the refrigerator. So I just put them right into the middle of this little silicone rolling out sheet. And on the inside here there's a circle and it has measurements. I find that's kind of handy for trying to make the right size that you want for your pie crust. So I'll be using 9.5 and 10-inch pie pans today. So I want to try to get as close as I can to a 12-inch circle. It doesn't have to be perfect because when I place in the pie pans, which I'll show you, I kind of curled the edges down so we have a nice smooth edge for our pie crust. Okay, so here's the 10-inch pie pan. And I just take the extra and I fold it under. And you can do whatever you like for the edges. Some people take their fingers and make a nice little fluted edge. You can take a fork and just press down. That's fine. We'll set this off to the side and do the other one. Here's a 9.5-inch pan, and it has a little deeper well to it. So again, we'll just take the extra and fold it under. So you have a nice smooth edging on top. Alrighty, so we have both the pies all ready to go. We'll bring them over and get them filled. Now we'll do the pie fillings. The filling will have a 1/2 cup of sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and about the juice of 1 lemon. And we'll be doing 2 pies, so there's twice as much in this bowl of the sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg. So we'll place the sliced zucchini into each of these pie crusts. It's about 1 quart each, depending on the pie crust size. There we go. I just kind of gently mix it together with the slices. That'll all cook down, and the juices from the zucchini will add a little moisture to the whole mix. We'll add a little bit of lemon juice to get that tartness that you would get with apples. So now we'll add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which is a 1/4 cup is about the juice of 1 lemon. So I have a 1/2 cup here, so I'll put 1/2 into each of these pies. Now we'll get the Dutch topping on, and we'll get these into the oven. This topping has been chilling in the refrigerator, so it's nice and cold. The butter pieces are nice and chilled and hard, so that'll help keep a crispy topping for the pie. And the flour in the crumble topping that we're doing here, the Dutch topping, that'll help kind of thicken the pie as well, since the zucchinis will let off some moisture as they cook. So I'll put each pie on a little cookie sheet to catch any bubbling over juices. And I have these little pie crust shields. They're silicone. They also come in metal ones. I like this one because it works for my smaller and my larger pie crust pans. That'll just help the edge of the crust from over browning. It's adjustable to size, so there's a little tab on the side here, and that goes into a groove on the edging of the pie crust. So that's nice. You can use, like I said, for large or small pie crust pans. Let's get these in the oven. These pies will take 45 minutes to an hour, so I'll put them in at 45 minutes and check them and see if we need to add more time. All right, the pies are finished. They have been in for about an hour and 10 minutes. I wanted the tops to get a little more golden brown and bubbly, so we'll put them on the cooling racks here. Take that off. There, we'll let that cool. Let me show you up close here. The crusts are nice and golden brown. The tops have goldened a little bit, but if you look on the inside here with the clear pie pans, you can see that the crust is finished and it is pulled away from the edge of the pie pan. All right, we'll let these cool and I'll cut into them. You can see what they look like. All right, so the pies have completely cooled, and by that I mean I pick it up and I feel the bottom of the center and it's not really hot to the touch. So what I'm going to do is pick my piece I want and I'll cut it and we'll see how this tastes. So nice crunchy topping and crust. Cut all the way through here. All right, let's take a taste here. So good. It's hard to tell that this is not an apple pie. The flavorings with the zucchini, and it keeps its texture here. It's nice and firm still. And the topping, nice and crunchy and cinnamony. Really good. If you have zucchini in your garden, or you're able to pick it up from the grocery store or a farmer's market, and you enjoy a nice fruit pie, this is one you should try. Well, I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I hope that you enjoyed this video today. And watch for more on other recipes of what to do with all this zucchini. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. See you next time. Take care.